Hi guys, I'm Chun Li, the owner of the Bold platform. The one who created the show that we're watching now is Cooking with an Architect. Welcome to Bold, Series 2 of Cooking with the Architect, dubbed the People's Pavilion. I'm your host Chun Li, and on today's show, we are aiming to highlight one of the five senses, taste. A sense that brings people together and unite each other, which is often left out in the design process. However, on today's show, we will be highlighting this through food. How may you ask? Well, our guest architect will design a dish that best sums up this question. What does architecture mean to you? And our guest architect is Yemi Aladerun, an architect, activist, and a senior development manager in the housing sector. Amongst her brilliant work within the built environment, she wears many hats. She's the co-founder of Paradigm Network, also the core member of Park W, a board trustee of Olympic Charity, and also she served as a national council member of the RIBA. Not only do we have a guest architect today, but we also have a guest community personnel, Kaz, who is the owner of this kitchen we're standing today, the Farm Community Kitchen. Established in 2022, she has provided over 200,000 meals for the surrounding community. So please help me to give my guests a very warm welcome. Hi guys, thank you for joining me on the show today. I'm so excited for what we're going to make. Are you guys ready for what we're about to eat and make?
Yeah, ready.
So just to get into it, can you please tell us what meal you'll be making for us today?
Right, so we are going to be making fish and chips, but with a twist.
Okay.
The twist is going to be swapping out the carbs of potatoes with plantains or plantains, depending on whether we're not going to start. We're not going to start.
It depends where you're from.
But, so I think fish and chips is an absolute British classic. I've chosen it because, well, it's one of my favourite meals. I think I've got a bit of an obsession with fish and chips, but I think it's a very accessible meal. It's for everyone, and so is that. And the twist is because I am from a Nigerian background. So I was born in Nigeria, grew up here, and this is just very accessible and a lovely meal
To eat, okay.
Yeah.
And can you tell us which ingredients, so that those who are at home and they want to make the dish, what the ingredients they need to get to make it also?
Yes, so we have got lots of things going on here. So the fish, rather than cod or haddock, we've got sea bream, which is red sea bream, absolutely fantastic, quite meaty and thick, and then also sustainable because it's not cod or haddock. We've got the plantains, tomatoes, garlic, spring onion, cloves, nutmeg, salt and pepper, onions, scotch bonnet. You've got to have the scotch bonnet and the fresh thyme as well.
We love a bit of spice. Yeah. Spice is good. So what do you want us to start with now to start making?
Why don't we start with the marinade for the plantain? And what we're going to do, it's actually a Ghanaian inspired plantain recipe. So it's called KELEWELE. So let's start with
chopping them up.
Cass, can you these are, and then why don't we start with the marinade?
Okay.
So we are going to.
Do we need to put in the oil?
Let's put in the oil as well, just to.
Now with plantain, is it best to keep the skin on and then peel off afterwards?
I would cut in half first and then peel and then go. Right.
And
let's put that and let's get that in. Not necessarily the most healthy, but we're. Right.
As we're doing the marinade, I wanted to ask some questions as we are cooking as well. So as you know, the show is focusing a lot on one of the senses, which is taste, which is part of the five senses of architecture. And I wanted to ask just a question for both of you. It's basically, how can we focus more on community when designing housing? So it's like the taste of in the built environment. How can we make it more suitable for the people that are within that community?
Do you want to go?
It's it seems like community kitchens and community spaces are quite a fundamental part of our life now, post-COVID, and I think that including it into your design process is a really key initiative to have. You know, we need that space to socialise and to interact with our kind of sort of overpopulated areas. We need to be able to kind of have positive spaces and mindfulness spaces. So it's great to kind of include food into that, because we all eat. So it doesn't matter where you come from. Food is that central thing that, as a human being, we all deserve, we all have the right to, and we all do.
Definitely,
so it's a really positive thing to have. Now, is that slicing too small, or are we?
Actually, that's fine.
Yeah?
That's fine, yeah.
And what's your take on it also, Yemi?
Taste is, in a very important way, very subjective. And it comes with it all the nuances of personal experiences and environments. That's why, for me, when we talk about increasing representation of those involved in designing, housing, creating our cities, it's really important to have as many people from varied backgrounds and abilities involved in that process, as they come with their own experiences, and it results in an end product that is richer and better suits the needs of the majority of those in the communities that we're building for. So the importance of having as many voices as possible in creating the spaces and places that of benefit, that can empower communities. In order to achieve that, we need to also do more than just consult. We need to co-create, co-author, go-govern, in order for the spaces that we're creating to really have the impact that we want them to have, and in order for people to feel some sort of agency and take up space in the way that we intend there. So that's why I just find spaces like this so amazing, and the work you do, I mean, it's just brilliant.
We just, you know, we learned to just get on and do what we needed to do, right? It was a case of put your head down and feed people. And you know, if you could redesign the space massively, I would, you know, like to be able to utilise it in a much better way. And if it was somewhere that I could find that could just set that straight up, and it was thought about from that design stage, you know, affordable housing, what does that actually mean nowadays? And then if that is affordable housing, what infrastructure are you putting around it for those people as well? So if they're you know, as you were saying, the reach, we have a sort of tried and tested knowledge of we're not getting to the right people because they don't have Instagram, they don't have phones, you know, they're in temporary housing with no internet. How do they then you know, access that information?
No, I think that's fine. I think
so. What have you put in this then?
So this was the cloves, the nutmeg, salt and pepper, the scotch bonnets, not too much, and the garlic. And then we're going to, Kaz, can you marinate the plantains in here?
And the question I wanted to ask as well, I remember I was having a conversation before with Kaz, and she was talking about, like, you know, the space and those kind of things. And how can we also think about, if we were supposed to make this from the beginning, a community kitchen from the beginning, the things I want to think about also is the well-being of the people, maybe having an outdoor space. I remember Kaz said that she works with all kinds of people when it comes to community kitchens. Some might have a little bit of difficulties with certain areas. Could we have like spaces where they can for wellness garden involved, or a garden where you can actually sit down and talk with the people? Because I know that Kaz does a lot in this community kitchen in terms of supporting people with like filling out forms and
kind of create a layer of advocacy in there too, right? So you're not building just the community, you're building the people that are helping.
Yeah.
So, you know, this kind of mutual aid principle that we started with, where you're getting something out of it because you're putting into it too.
Yeah.
And that's a really important, you know, so having a space where people can have that quiet sit down if it feels like their anxieties are getting too much. You know, that would be a really positive experience for them, and to be able to kind of have that quiet conversation if they're having, you know, some problems and they need some guidance and that, and to be able to have that private space that you can go to, you know.
So we are just going to wait for this to warm up, and then this is going to be a very simple tomato sauce, but it's cooked tomato sauce, and it's one like my mum makes, and normally have it with rice and it just goes really well with everything. So this, if you like, is the alternative to having curry sauce on your fish and chips, or your, not quite your mushy peas, but it's a bit of sauce, or like your ketchup.
That's all ready for you.
Oh, perfect. That looks amazing.
I may well have, with Scotch bonnet, should maybe want some gloves, because now I'm going to have to just borrow the sink. My hands are going, whoo! They're on fire for a second.
So I'm just cut up the tomatoes. They're going to make it.
Yeah, brilliant.
I remember, I think I listened to one of your podcasts, and it was for Architecture's Day.
Okay. Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Don't quote me on this. And I remember you said something about that architects need to think less about just the building, but more about this, like the city, the in-between spaces. And I think sometimes, like architects, just in general, because they get so like caught up with the design process, or like this little baby that they're kind of like creating, they forget about the in-between spaces.
Yeah.
And those fillers, those in-between spaces are what makes
so important.
What makes those spaces. Yeah. So I think I don't know. You want to expand more?
Yeah, I think for me, I spent a very long time as an architect. I think the way we're taught, you're predisposed to think about buildings and form. And then I had to I've spent the last couple of years kind of turning that on its head and being really people focused and kind of doing more of the advocacy work. And I think my worldview of architecture changed to thinking more about the profession as well. And again, people just kept coming out of that. And actually, what do people need to thrive and prosper? And I really do believe my focus is on housing, that a good house at a space called home where you can feel safe, that is essential in order for people to thrive and prosper. But community also uplift people, and actually how can you create those spaces that put a smile on your face? A lot of what I remember growing up was kind of around the edges of the home as well, so playing out on the street. And now I just feel the vibe is very, very different. And in terms of safety and, you know, also I'm going to sound like a real fuddy-duddy here, but also technology has also come in the way sometimes of just going out and having a little play on the street.
Outside. Go and learn how to ride your bike rather than like playing the next level of Sonic or something. Right?
I remember like me and my friend, there's a really horrible game that we used to play, like it's a Jamaican game. It's called Dodge. So you basically get like a tennis ball, and then 2 people stand at each end, and the person in the middle had to, like, the person would throw the tennis ball really hard, but they had to like dodge, like dodge it. But I remember like all of us used to be in the middle of the street. I think this was Northumberland Park. You know, Northumberland Park, the Edmonds, like around Edmonds kind of area. And it was like, you know where there used to be like an outdoor like train. You know that train that goes across and then you have to wait in your car before.
Right, yes.
Yes, it's an area that was...
So with the shutters that come down to stop you from driving, from going through.
So we were like, the housings were just on the other side of that, so we saw all the trains and everything that went past. And we used to be out there for like hours, and we'll be like playing dodge games, we'll be like playing like hopscotch, like double dutch. And I remember just being out there running back and forth to all our friends' houses, like going to each other's house, do you have ice pocket? And just playing games and being out there for hours. I don't really remember being like on technology there, but I remember.
I used to play like the whole estate. We used to play like hide and seek on our bicycles, right? You know, and use the whole estate and be able to kind of run around. And and the trust our parents must have had in us, because they didn't have a phone.
Yeah, well,
you know,
exactly.
it was come back at this time when the lights come on and the street lights come on or something like that, you know. And now, as a mum, I'm like, where are you? Where are you? I can text it and find those kind of things out. Whereas before, we sort of disappeared, didn't we?
Yeah.
So
is that, and especially, I think one of the things you said as well, which is really true, is that for kids having that connection to nature when we live in cities, and a lot of us now do live in cities, and children don't know how tomatoes are grown, or where, if they are meat eaters,
that whole process of farming, right?
So I think having that access, I know there are now some community farms as well as community kitchens, and that's great, but how do we expose those really from underrepresented groups who tend to have less access to those spaces, green spaces, and those from kind of lower socioeconomic backgrounds as well. I think it's really important that we're finding ways to uplift, and I talk about accessibility a lot, physical accessibility, yes, but kind of in knowledge sharing and offering up spaces where people can feel that it's also for them and they're not excluded from those spaces. So how, I've got if it's okay, actually, what are the kind of people that you find, because I think sometimes you might have a stereotypical idea of the kind of people that might frequent and use places like community kitchens. What are the types of people that you find frequent here? And do you have regulars?
Well, we do, yes. So we've been feeding people since through COVID. So pretty much the beginning of COVID, through the May of 2020. We started feeding people. Some of those people are still on our list. And what we're finding is that it's actually the people that fall through the net of the system, that you're not quite ill enough to have this benefit, or, you know, or food bank is the only thing you can use, but you're not physically able to use that food bank. So how do we fill those gaps? So it could be a parent who just needs some meals like once a week just to take the edge off, you know. So it's kind of like getting a takeaway, but you can't afford to take away. So this is a way of giving you some fresh meals once a week. Everybody is eating the same things, so it's still like a family meal, but it's more manageable. It's just pop in the microwave, kind of, you know, that gives mum that little more chance to just and you know, like let's think about all the different ways that we can help, rather than saying that we only do this one thing. If you need food, you come in and ask for food. And we don't discriminate. We don't ask you to prove how poor you are with a proof of benefit or any of that kind of thing. That's how we feel like that builds up a proudness that makes people find it quite difficult to ask for help, because they feel like they're being scrutinised yet again. So we take that out of the equation completely. People, so elderly residents, people that are in and out of hospital all the time, carers, that it, you know, means that the carers can pick up food for people, and people that have just lost their job, you know, jump on the list, buffer yourself for a little bit. What we can't do is give you money to help, right? So what we can do is alleviate your food pressure, and that then releases money within what you've got to then pay your bills, to do those things that, you know, or even just, you know, buy that pair of shoes for your kids, right?
If you're designing a council estate, right, it's important to design a council estate that will have spaces that are usable. And sometimes you can have council estates and you have like these tall, you don't know how to do it in English, but you're standing in the middle, you feel like everyone's just like staring, no noise down, and I feel like just overlooking, so so it's like, if we're going to design space like that, maybe some areas would be like 3-story, and then those communal areas would be where there's like 3-story housing, and then maybe on another area where you design it, can you design it in a way that when they're walking down, like they're walking in a pathway, it's like, oh, I'm just looking across concrete, and it's just like quiet in the middle of the night, but they feel safe, because a lot of spaces now for girls as well, like when they're walking in alleyways, it can feel very unsafe because there's no lights, It's just like barbed wires going all the way down.
Yes.
It's very small corridor.
Not very, a lot of access,
Yeah.
like exit points.
Exactly. And just one little light, like that just is there.
Nice.
Well, that's the thing with creating that outside social space. You're also potentially setting up antisocial behaviour, right?
Yeah.
So you're having to work within the local authority and the police force to work out how that becomes a safe space rather than a misused space.
And again, that's why you need to speak
a natural
to people.
progression, right? That we have, like within our when we're teenagers, we are kind of, that's where we're pushing against the system, right? Yeah. So they do kind of, and I'd rather they're all sitting there chatting and and just kind of chilling out rather than hiding underneath like archways and putting themselves in a position where they could be in danger. And so it's how you create that space without creating an antisocial attachment to it.
And that's the thing, I guess, if you are creating spaces for people to gather, actually allow children to gather or the youth to gather, knowing that they want to do that. So create purposeful spaces for that, so they don't have to misuse other spaces.
Well, I like youth centres and youth clubs, right?
We had
we had them like. It was like every Thursday would be the night that I would go to my youth club. And have a lot of that. There's like buses and things that we've got a local park where a bus comes and it's been funded and that, and the kids can come and interact. But that's once a week. It doesn't necessarily be every day. But like, and it's also about education to other generations. That the children are just gathering, but they're necessarily doing anything antisocial, right? It's that assumption that we put onto people and age groups, don't we? So so it's multi-layered. I don't envy your position.
I think we just need to talk more and accept that we don't know it all, and we need help in creating these spaces. And understanding the dynamics. So if you are building tower blocks and you've never lived in a tower block, you might not necessarily understand that they're key spaces that people use in a certain way. And that's why you need to hear from those that have lived in those sorts of, and not only hear from them, actually that's why we need more people in the professions that are from different backgrounds. So professionally, I think we have a lot to do in terms of diversifying those who are actually designing those spaces as well.
Going into local schools and doing design projects with them and things like that. Like giving them the
agency
and then they're involved and they're connected.
About you talk about the youth and the community, like with them come together in youth spaces. So with this show, we're collaborating this year with the People's Pavilion, with Beyond the Box, and how they're designing spaces. The youth are come together to design a pavilion that they can hang out. Do you think we can take initiative like this within the council for the youth to design spaces that they want to congregate, that they would like to come together, basically? On the basic with the People Pavilion and them coming together and designing the space. What do you think about that? Of them coming and design space?
I think the more collaboration is needed, right? The more is better. Listening to the voices of the people that are actually going to use that space, right? It's more valuable than just going, I think they want, and then just putting things in that aren't ever going to be used correctly. So I think it's a really positive thing. I think start frying.
Yeah, because I remember when as well, I was younger, there was like a youth space that was available in like Tottenham. And I remember that youth space being like very vibrant. So everyone in my school in the area was so excited to go to the youth club on the Wednesday after school, because like, oh, this is our social time. We're gonna hang out, play our games, and listen to music. But then they closed the space down, and then there was no longer spaces for anybody to hang out, and they didn't even find a way to replace it. So I think having youth spaces, I think, is very important for people to have like express their creativity.
Absolutely.
And that's how people kind of find out as well, like maybe gifts and talents, because they would try to take part in like maybe arts and crafts,
arts, culture, exactly. Yes, those skills that they need to develop to make themselves confident when they get out into the big wide world, right? So and to hone their kind of their what's the word I'm looking for? Like their skills. That they're naturally progressing themselves, their interests. And to not just be you need maths and English.
Yes.
You're also your creativity, right? That creates a completely different environment.
And we were talking before also about kind of just life skills as well, and interacting. It's all good and well interacting with people digitally, but actually understanding how to interact with different types of people in person is
never going to work in an environment that you like everybody necessarily, right? Or,
exactly.
So there's always going to be different people with different priorities and different views, and how you productively work with those people
is absolutely key.
Rather than sort of isolating yourself to only one sort of culture or kind of experience. Then when you're actually out in a real work environment, that's not the same.
No, not at all.
Right. So it's about developing those skills earlier on in life
to be able to put them.
So it's not such a shock to the system. So
and for me as well, even saying that with those community spaces, do you see the need when working with like communities, having young people are, say for example, craving a space that they want to hang out, or a space that they can say they can call their own?
Definitely, because we do things a lot, and I think I touched on it earlier as well, where professionals can create spaces the way they think people want to use them. You see it a lot in the landscape, and then you're looking at the park, and all of a sudden you see this markings on the ground where everything else is green, and then you've got a bit of worn land. That's because those are desire lines of where people would actually otherwise go. So if they were consulted with earlier, they would say, actually no, you've designed it like that, but naturally this is the way I would walk. So design it like that. So I think absolutely getting people around the table to discuss those kind of spaces, including sitting kids down of different ages and saying, actually, how would you use this park, or how would you use this playground? Would you actually use it? I remember doing a bit of a workshop with some college students in Hammersmith a few years ago, and they said that actually they found really wide expanse scary at night. Wow. So actually they like spaces where there was green spaces, but where there were different pots of activities going on, not just one huge space of green and nights. Actually understanding those types of things was really
in your collectives, right? So you have your friendship groups, but those friendship groups might not necessarily want to hang out together in that space. So allowing them to have a little bit of space to call their own.
And I think as well is considering the different age groups as well.
So
different generations would want to do different things. So what a 5-year-old would want to do in play around in the playground, someone who is 15 most likely don't want to go on the slide or a swing. So it's like, how can you create a space within a green area that can fit for a 15-year-old,
but also
and still cater to someone who, a group of little children who are like 5 and 10. And then maybe someone who's like a young adult, how would they want to use that space? So it's kind of creating pockets within that. I remember in my school, we had like, we didn't have much green space, but we had the football pitch, and we had like we call it the cage. Sounds a bit horrible. But it was literally the cage. And then we had this one little small area of green, a patch of green land, and they called it just for girls with just a bench. And
so we can sit and natter. Right?
So it's just a bench, and so that's the area for girls to go. I understand what they were trying to do, but just having a little space with like a green area and just a bench, anyone's going to go there. It's not
exactly.
Say it's tailored for girls. So they should. I think what would be good, even like in schools, if you're gonna have a space like that, actually speak to the girls. What would you want in a space that is made for you, or for the boys, or if it was supposed to be a space for you, what would you want your space to look like?
Want the,
So it's having that space that actually reflects who those people are really.
Totally agree.
I would definitely say
we could put one more in, and then
that's it.
We get 2.
Yeah.
Should we?
Have we done enough? Plantain. These ones just need a little bit longer. Have a little nibble.
Chef's allowed to have a little nibble.
Yeah. Chef's taste. Chef's kiss. Is that what you say?
We've always got taste of food.
That's good. Not too spicy at all. I thought with those Scotch bonnets, I thought we were going to blow everybody's stencil. But
Scoville level. The Scotch bonnet's quite high, isn't it?
Amazing. Gosh, this looks fantastic. Right, Janine, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep cooking, or we've got everything?
We've got everything, I think, so far.
I'm just going to, I'm going to advise you, we're going to do it properly.
What is the temperature that should be?
So that needs to be on a little longer. It's 63, and it should be. That one's all right. That one's 77, so that one's good. This one, it's thickest point. Just the bottom one needs a little bit
longer.
This one.
This one.
Good one. Is good.
Okay.
Oh, brilliant.
There you go. So as you can see, we're doing
at
things
least,
by the book.
yeah, doing things by the book and making sure no one's going to have a bad stomach after.
Yes, we're looking after people.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to do is hurt them. Right?
Sorry, this is actually really, really good. I'm
going to have to make more, aren't I?
Yemi's going to eat off all of them by the time. And one more question, I think, 2 more questions I wanted to ask. The first question I wanted to ask is, do you think then, from our conversation and just like observation of all that we're saying, is that we need to design inside out? So design social structures first before designing the spaces?
We need to plan for them. We can't, I think part of what we said is that often you just like, oh, here's a space, do something with it. But actually, if you were able to plan all the things you would like to happen around them, and actually you might put this kitchen, maybe not here, might be down there because there's access to green spaces, or it's really close to X, whatever else. So actually, I think where we have the ability to plan parts of city like we do at Meridian Water, those are the things we spend a lot of time thinking about. So we've got the new housing, yes, but lots of new green spaces, which includes a skate park, which we hope is going to be like world-leading skate park, but we've got a community garden. It's temporary for the time of the build, but we've got a community garden, and we've also got a skills academy as well, so that actually you've got those that go through the academy, and then they can then go a few steps because they can see the construction site. This is all within the main construction. They could then work within that area as well. So I think that those are the kind of things, when you have the ability to plan cities, those are all the kind of things you need to think about and put next to each other where you can. So.
I remember one thing, I remember from visiting my, this is good? Yeah?
We're checking.
Oh, we're checking, guys.
Yep.
I want one of these at home. I don't know how I've managed to not.
What the?
Those. That looks about right.
Can I turn this off?
Gosh, that looks so good. I also want to try that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to burn myself.
You should.
Just a little bit.
Put a bit of, put some more butter in there and make it into a nice
glaze. A little bit of lemon.
That is good. Even if I do say so ourselves.
Quite 7 into a little bit.
Yeah, I've got asbestos fingers, so I went straight in
yes,
there for that.
Yeah. No, even for me, I can feel.
That is good.
Yeah. I was excited.
Lush.
Really good. I'm gonna put it to the side here because
Smash it. Oh, brilliant.
Oh, exciting! And then so we're
just waiting for these to brown off.
Okay, and then we'll be
quite
finished.
as brown as that one.
And I was just thinking, you saying this, we have communal gardens, spaces. And I remember one time I visited a place. This was like in Florida, and they had a garden area, like a park. But in the parks, they had the barbecues.
Yes.
Communal barbecues. Yeah. I think the UK, you don't see stuff like that. Like in the summertime.
Yeah, in France they have the same sort of thing, even when you're travelling.
So how come in the UK we don't have that? Because like everybody, not everyone has a garden.
You don't. Yeah.
In the garden, it's just in like the parks. There's like a communal area that they build with just wood. You just put a grill. And then you bring it on coal, you bring on your fire stuff.
But the idea as well is who cleans up. So they're the cultures that you clean after you've used, so that the next person can do so.
It, right?
So actually, it's also a mentality and a cultural change, as well as you provide. But then what happens in terms of maintenance and keeping it so that.
We don't have enough barbecues.
Well, in the attitude of this country currently, in our area that I'm seeing is, fly tipping is very high, and we have a kind of reluctancy to deal with our waste.
Yeah.
And we don't take responsibility enough for our waste. So it's in our borough the fact that we have brown bins so that we can give that food waste back to and it can become useful for the allotments and things like that, right? Whereas not all boroughs have that, and they don't have access to that either.
Why is that? Why do you?
Because it depends on the unit of where all the rubbish goes. So the local
recycling centres.
So what they have available to them. So again, and for us, it's like working with allotments. And getting onto the allotment societies, we are saving surplus food from the supermarkets, turning it into food that is accessible to eat for the community. So we're saving food. So but we're still creating waste with that food. So you have a responsibility of that whole food cycle.
So and linking to what you said, then there's a big thing then about how do we make people proud of the areas they're in, so they want to look after it. So it's not if you don't, because one mentality could be a couple of years ago, I know that they used to go up and down high streets, and if they saw you dumping waste, or do they still do it somewhere else? So
cigarette
I don't see it
and things like that
as much.
Right?
And so that's one way of doing it, because once you've been fined a tenner or whatever it is, you're probably not going to do that again.
Yes, it makes you think twice.
So that's one way of doing it, but another way of doing it is that how do we instill pride in our areas, in people, so they don't want to drop waste on them.
I think that goes back to the conversation of including them.
Yes.
In the decisions,
empowering them.
Empowering them in the decisions of the area. Very often, people live in a borough, and the decision has been made without even knowing that.
Consulting.
This Sainsbury's is going to be there now, or this.
Plant pots cutting off streets and things like that, right? And making it. Let's not get onto that subject. But when the local authority make choices on your behalf and don't consult you, you're going to feel disgruntled.
Absolutely.
You're not going to put. You're not going to believe them when they're saying that they're doing things for your good. You don't feel included. This is your community. You live there. It's not. They're just there to maintain. And they should be listening to you as the community member. You're paying your council tax. You are involved in that space. So don't belittle your residents in your area and actually support them. That's because there's so many community schemes that pick up, even just around we have lots of tree-lined streets in the north, don't we? Of London. encouraging people to make little boxes around the trees to help the trees feed, put some wildflowers in, you know, that means that it's better for the prams to get past and bring all the people, you know, so you're just thinking about putting just little things in that slowly build it up, and, you know, just kind of make it a little bit more warm.
I remember there's a project in I think it's New York or somewhere in America where at the front of the houses they tend to have more where we will have trees, they have a patch of greenery, like green land. And there's this person who went around started planting like zucchinis and like all these like vegetables and stuff, and the government was having a problem with it, and he was like, well, sometimes these spaces turn into like areas where just rubbish is there. I'm using it so that the community can benefit. So they walk down the street, grab a zucchini, or they might grab a carrot, like, and they go home and they might have something to make a meal. It reminds me very much like in Jamaica, because from my background is Jamaican. You always have trees that's like has akis. You have a water bananas. You have mangoes. Like so it's always like food to eat kind of thing. You always just go to someone. You see someone has a tree in their house. You're, can you give me one of your akis, or when you
a living supermarket, a natural
just
supermarket.
Like grab things like. So I think we should adapt that within maybe countries like European countries with a bit more cold, but like potatoes and stuff, they're so easy to
and you can grow them in sacks, you know, you don't need to have this whole bed and things like that. I mean, I grew up outside of London, so even that culture of where I grew up to being now living in London and my children growing up, you know, I was fortunate enough to have a giant back garden and pretty much an allotment in our back garden. So Dad would send us up to go and get peas and things like that.
Nice.
We'd come back with not a lot of peas.
You'd eat them all.
You know, and the strawberry patch, you know, the same size as this kitchen, our strawberry patch was, and you know, so you're, we learned a lot because we had that experience. We had that. We were fortunate enough to have that kind of size garden. We don't have that here. My garden is like absolutely tiny. So how do I then grow things with my children to give them that experience that I had? And you know, I'm fortunate enough to have a house with a garden rather than being in a flat block. So you know, how do you grow things on your windowsill or just in your little balcony?
That kind of becomes like your own little garden space.
And you can, granted, you could grow basil and things like that on there, and a little sort of tomato plant or a you know, scotch bonnet plant. You know, you can have those kind of things there.
Even strawberries as well.
But you can have a hanging strawberries. But you can't really have a big sack of potatoes and all of that kind of thing. So that's where it then needs to go into that communal space.
Absolutely, where everyone can benefit
from
it and everyone can tend to it. And,
I remember, like Sandra was saying before, that when I used to be outside playing, there was even like in the train station, I think, pretty sure it was dangerous. So we used to climb, like where the train's going by, there was like this whole like green area. So we used to climb through the fence and then walk, and there used to be like wild blueberries. So we used to go there, and then we used to go like, the trains are going by, and we're just like, the trains go by, we stop because that you get in trouble.
If they saw you.
Hide behind a bush.
So we used to go there and then pick like loads of like little blueberries. And then we take them back and we sit there and wash them and then eat them. And those are experiences, I think, like
cool memories that you still remember.
And I think children now, they might not be able to have those memories because they can't go outside as much now.
Like, again, it's all time back. The conversations are kind of all feeding.
And it's a question of, is it just because we have more knowledge, we have more knowledge sharing, right? So, you know, if there's the danger, then are we more hyper aware now? Because
so we don't allow ourselves to.
There was still that danger when we were children. But
we braved it.
But we
did.
And ignorance is bliss, maybe. I don't know. Like, you know, like how our parents felt about us being out and about, like how we now feel as parents of our children going out and about. And actually, it should be easier because we have that direct communication. And we didn't have that back then. So, you know, how do we look after
all of that
together?
Should we start?
It's all done, let's plate. So,
you might pop those out of the way for you.
There we go. Right. I think we should all plate up what we've cooked. So I've put my bit in the rack already. So you planting in the
And I put the fish. Get side up.
yeah.
Gosh,
We've got very. Oh, let's do some spring onions very, very quickly.
Okay. Some lemon.
Some.
Fish
Yes.
sauce nice from lemon.
I put some in the marinade, but we should.
I mean, like
also-
a cube on the
yes,
side.
let's
Doing
do
this
it.
MasterChef style.
Can I get that knife, please?
Yes.
The large one.
The yellow one.
A bit intimidating.
Right here, that's, you know, is it past and the
A nice wedge.
Thank you, Ross.
I learnt this
Absolutely.
on, I think it's MasterChef. Let me show you guys what I learnt on MasterChef.
Go on. Is it going to work? Is it going to work?
So it's like, instead of just putting a lemon cube like this, what you do, you cut off the ends
Need your knife edge.
like that, and it
Yeah.
makes it look like
Yes.
a fish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you
From
approve?
from even from the bar industry, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Just get some. I was using the wrong knife there. It was
Oh,
serrated. This is not up to your standard, Kaz, but it'll do. It'll do.
No standing on ceremony.
Right, should we just?
Should we put some thyme sprinkles?
Yes, let's get.
Yes, a lovely little bit.
Would you look at that, eh?
Way.
Not bad. An amazing conversation and lovely food to go with.
And this is for you, for the guys to see. Can you see it? Can you see the dish?
You go in the middle.
It's
then
sliding off the plate.
Oh.
Yeah.
Try not to slide off. Nice, nice. Can you see?
Voila.
And can you tell us what, if you told us from the beginning, can you just explain
Oh
the
yeah,
rest
so
of it?
this is a twist on fish and chips.
With plantain
Yep.
chips and
Red sea bream.
sea bream. Yeah.
Yep, and a warm tomato and onion sauce.
Yummy.
Lovely.
Well, just one
Thank
question
you.
I wanted to ask before we wrap up, and the question is, if you could summarize taste in one word, what would that be?
Ooh. I would say taste nuance.
Taste.
Nuance in the sense of, using, be very specific about what I mean by that, is that there is no right or wrong answer, and going back to the beginning of it will be that it's a matter of experience, and so what you've grown up with, what you naturally like, but also your life's experiences that make you like certain things over another.
Okay.
So we will all have different tastes, and I think that's absolutely fine.
Oh, and yours?
Preference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we all have a different
Absolutely.
kind of preference
Yep.
to taste, and it should always be respected, because we come from different areas, and to enjoy that together,
Yeah.
right, and learn.
Learn.
Absolutely.
Be acceptive to learn as well.
Mm.
What about you?
Yeah.
Me, well, that's a hard question. I would say taste, like, is subjective.
Mm.
Kind of like taking what both of you are saying.
Yeah.
Everyone's taste can be different.
Mm.
So your experience, your background, your culture can dictate what your taste
Yeah.
can be.
Absolutely.
Experience as well can change your taste over time.
Yeah.
And to be open to new,
that.
Be open
right?
to new,
Absolutely.
yeah. So it's not being stuck on one,
Yeah.
but being open for
Yeah.
it to be changed, basically.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yes.
That my level of ability of pepper, for
Yeah.
example, you know,
Yeah.
from being a kind of sausage and mash kind of growing
Yeah.
up, right? So learning to have like Thai food,
Yeah.
and you know, and I still can't do jerk chicken.
I can eat jerk chicken. I like when it's hot. I like jerk chicken
Yeah.
when you're eating and you're sweating. It's
And then more hot sauce
What,
on
yeah.
top.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's part of the experience. I feel like you don't experience it. For me, it's not experience it properly if you're not like
sweating.
Yeah. I remember sort of Mexican jalapeno level.
Yeah.
That's about all I can kind of cope with.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us
on this episode of Cooking with an Architect. I've learned so much from both of you guys, like so much. And I thank you for all your wisdom and knowledge. I really appreciate it. So guys, thank you for tuning in for episode 3 of Cooking with Architect with my amazing guests Yemi and Kaz. And please stay tuned for episode 4. I'm not going to tell you now who the special guest is. You have to wait to see. So I'll see you then. Bye.
Today I've learned so much about architecture and structure and how it works with community spaces like ours in a new world environment.
I have learned so much from today's meeting, Kat, and cooking with her and Chun-Li. Things that kind of I've known theoretically about the importance of places like the farm kitchen, but just how important they are for communities as a really strong social infrastructure. So over and on top of the housing that I'm really focused on delivering, actually these sorts of places are fantastic for empowering people, giving them a sense of dignity, as well as, you know, nourishing them and giving them food. But there's so much more that goes around the idea of giving people food. It's also creates a place for people to come together, deals with things like isolation and that kind of intergenerational mixing and learning from each other, and giving people skills as well that they can then use to better their lives. So much respect for Kath and those here, and a big thank you to Chun-Li for all the fantastic work she's doing and this initiative, which hopefully also then increases the profile of organisations like the Farm Kitchen.
It's been such a great afternoon learning a new skill, especially about plantain, and we've had a really fun afternoon working together and broadened my horizons of new conversations and taught me so much.
What I learned from today's interview is so much from the housing sector and also the community. Very often we leave out the voice of those who we're trying to design for and end up designing spaces that are not very well used for those communities that we're designing for. So I would definitely say that the voice of the people or the spaces that we're trying to occupy are very much important when creating and designing spatial housing, community spaces, communal spaces. We need to really hone into those voices to create really quality, good social spaces.